And welcome back to Michigan Matters, where the roundtable's gathered as we welcome former co-director of Michigan State University's MPLP program, Susie Avery, Denise Illich, CEO of Illich Enterprises and Regent at University of Michigan, and David Dulio, Executive Director of Oakland University Center for Civic Engagement. Good morning. Before we go in, I want to make a correction on myself. I identified Connect 313 as code 313. If you're looking for them online, it's Connect 313. So there we go. Don't want to let that go. Speaking of mistakes and other things, Susie, let me start with you.
Oh, good. Start with me.
We're going to start with you here. The dumpster fire that continues to burn is Michigan State University. As an alum of it, which, you know, green and white, I'm also alum of Michigan, as folks know. I mean, it's embarrassing that these issues continue to be compounded. Last weekend, they had a picture of Adolf Hitler at their football game as part of a trivia quiz. I don't know. Geez, it's like the gang that can't shoot straight here. People talked about Joel Ferguson and Melanie Foster and Colleen McNamara saying, but this board, oh my gosh. What's going on? You're tied in up there in East Lansing. What's going on up there?
I'm not that tied in, but I have to tell you that, first of all, I want to say Michigan State University is a great university in the state of Michigan. I mean, they have some wonderful, wonderful programs that are going on there and wonderful things. The problem becomes, as a grandmother whose granddaughter was just accepted at Michigan State University, doesn't know if she's going there, and would pay exorbitant out-of-state tuition. You know, the question to her becomes, how does this help me get an education and can I get a job after? So this doesn't affect just what's going on at Michigan State University. Potential students to other universities, to other things going on, and they have got to rein this in.
So, Dee, you're a regent at University of Michigan. It too is a board, and occasionally there's squabbles, as we know. I mean, to be part of a board, to be part of a school board, a university board, whether you're appointed by the governor or you run as the case of Wayne State, Michigan, and Michigan State, there's governing. And, you know, I know a thing or two about this, certainly. I know you're not going to, this is not your issue, but from your perch of having been involved in boards, particularly when there's squabbles and things that go on, what do you believe can or should be done at this point up there?
Well, I know a lot of the board members, and they're good people, and they're strong community leaders with great reputations, so it is a little perplexing. But I think that the tone starts at the top, whatever your organization or institution is, and the culture needs to be one of leadership and servant leadership and keeping an eye on the ball that we are serving students, number one. And there's a lot of drama that's been going around. So I think that, and I also think that, you know, at Michigan, we have a very good governance structure where we have a revolving chair every year. And that seems to avoid a lot of the issues that come up or that I've seen at MSU.
Yeah, you have people go there a long time. Well, in fact, Michigan State is looking for a new president right now. I think I heard that they were hoping to announce the new president by Thanksgiving here. But, David, you have been all about civility, working together. We usually talk about this in context of politics, but in context of a board where you're dealing with something like this, I mean, how do you see this? And again, you're in a university situation there at Oakland. How do you see what's going on at Michigan State and what needs to be done there, do you think?
Well, I'm not going to get into that so much in the nuts and bolts of it. I'll pull a quote that Susie will be familiar with from Ronald Reagan, right? Thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican. And I'll apply that since I work at another public institution. But having said that, right, I'll pull a word from your previous segment and that's divide, right? There's division all over the place, and I think that when it boils over into the public on a board where things are usually more handled internally, it starts to cause real problems.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is the governor talked about is there a case to be made for the chairperson, one of the Michigan State trustees, to be removed? Would she do that? I mean, I'm not sure necessarily. There's a lot of confusion over all of this, but right now I think the malfeasance of governance is an issue.
Right, and I would just like to add, they've been talking a lot about elected versus appointed. Right. And elected, it really has nothing to do with the behavior of the board. I think that elected is the will of the people. And it's the citizenry in Michigan that elects. And so
For now.
Right.
It was a closed-door meeting.
To tie in the challenges that are going on at Michigan State to whether you're elected or not, I do not think is a fair connection.
So there was closed-door meeting earlier this week with the governor and others talking about this, having all region trustees appointed by the governor. They have any traction, do you think? Will it go anywhere?
I think you're going to see traction on this for sure. You know, I think Senator McBroom in the Michigan Senate has a proposal that's already drafted, and I'm not sure it's been introduced, but it's there that would shift the 3 elected boards to appointed, like the other 12, like we have at Oakland University, and we also have a great board that does.
Why did they come?
But I do not think that'll stop the
that
problems.
came up during the Constitution in the 63.
Right, and
we called it the George Romney kind of thing, because he was the one. Actually, those 3 universities had the most political pull to keep it, because how they wanted to keep it is to keep their donors. They could, you know, promote donors to be on there.
You know what that solution is? It always comes down to politics, doesn't it?
It sure does. And we should
hold that thought. So we're going to take a quick break here. Hold that. I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we're going to take a quick break and be right back after this. And welcome back to Michigan Matters. We're talking with Susie Avery, Denise Illich, and David Dooley about a variety of things. And the UAW strike, which has been going, and as of this taping, they had reached a tentative deal, which workers still need to vote on with the UAW, with GM and Stellantis still up there. Just real quickly, Susie, the situation with more unions on strike and so forth. Do you see? Are we seeing a new generation of labor, strife?
Well, I think it's a different way of bargaining. I mean, than we've seen in the past. I mean, I've lived a long life, and this was the way that the UAW did this time is different from anything. And at the same time, we've got the casinos on strike. We have Blue Cross Blue Shield. I mean, and there might be hospitals that were on strike there for a while, some nursing staff. So I think we're seeing this more and more, that they are getting together in terms of how they're negotiating, which is a different way than we have all been used to.
Well, and also to the fact that the unions gave back so much in previous negotiations with, 2008 and with the pandemic, things changed, and I think the workers want a little bit of it's time for Me Too moment with some of this as well.
And speaking of divide, there's a big divide economically with inflation rising and everything, and you see such high compensation for CEOs, and then the rest of the organization is much lower. It's inequitable.
Yeah, I know. Well, the other thing, too, is when you look at the compensation of CEOs, when you look at autos versus other big companies, there's no comparison there. So it's all relative, I guess, to what we're saying with all of this. But just real quickly, David, I want to ask you, because you're following policy oftentimes here, the latest shooting in Maine where dozens killed, dozens injured, you have someone who had long issues and was a firearms expert. Do you think in this condition and in this situation, will this put any more might, if you will, behind the challenge to have more of changes in Washington as far as legislation and assault weapons bans?
Sure, and first thing, right, we all agree that another tragic situation that no one wants to see happen. In a word, no. This might put a little bit more pressure, but I don't see that coming to fruition. Any
other opinions about?
From your lips to God's ears. It just change.
Well, I also want to ask you too. You have an event with John James coming up at the university coming up in early November, right?
We do. It's a Veterans Day themed event, and we've asked Congressman James, who represents a portion of Oakland University's campus, to come and talk about service and sacrifice. And when you see some of the things that are happening not only in the country these days but around the world, those concepts of service and sacrifice start to take on a bit more meaning. So we're delighted that he's going to come to campus.
Susie, if you were starting out in this environment, would you run for office?
Oh, I don't know. Next year they're going to have in place, if you're going to run for state office, you're going to have to tell them a lot of things about yourself. Any money that you make over $1,000, anything possibly that your spouse might make, so you can't put your,
everything is wide open, and that's going to, I think, a lot of people who don't want to do politics anyways.
And I think you're seeing a lot of political people on the Republican Democrat side saying we're going to run for local offices now.
Right. Well, I know there's a lot more to say about it, but unfortunately we're kind of winding down in time here. So before we go, I wanted to weigh in on something that is near and dear to so many of us, and that's our beloved Detroit Lions.
Yes.
Lions fans got a dose of reality last week when they traveled to Baltimore and got thumped by the Ravens. I've been around professional football types for over 15 years, and they all have a phrase that they often use. It's hard to win the National Football League, to win a game there. Dating back to last season, the Detroit Lions are 13-4 in their last 17 games. That's an impressive record that demonstrates true progress. But last week showing that there is still a ways to go before anyone plans a parade down Woodward. You know the real test for Dan Campbell's crew? Tomorrow night. It's Monday Night Football Spotlight at home against the Raiders team they are better than and should beat. Let's see if they bounce back. Guys, anyone weighing on the Lions tomorrow night?
Are you kidding me? They're my favorite team.
That's right,
They
go
have
Lions.
been since the 60s, since my father was screaming at the television, which was this big at the
Real quick.
Ford Field will be rocking tomorrow night. Lions win.
There
Go
we go.
Lions.
There we go. With that, I want to put a Honolulu blue and silver bow tie on the show
right.
today. We're all there. We're lit the candle. So, folks, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And thanks to you for joining us, too. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next Sunday for more Michigan Matters.